Zion talked the other day about spending some time in nickel. What do you like about him at that spot, and how are you kind of splitting his responsibilities right now?
Yeah, I mean, you saw last year, when Andrew went down in the Mississippi State game and he jumped in there. It's nice to be able to play him in some of that field overhang, nickel, medium, all that, that he can get at times closer to the box. He's got a great feel for football, so that position is so much about feel and getting him close to the action. I know he loves that, where he can get his, nose dirty and get in, make tackles, be able to blitz a little bit more from that spot. It's a good thing for him, and it's a good thing for our defense. It allows us to be multiple and flexible.
Do you still see Alex Safari as one of the best 11? And how do you balance finding him a home inside versus getting your best 11?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think everything is going to come down to getting guys in the right situations against the right personnel. It's so much as personnel matchups. Like, you're trying to get the right bodies on the right bodies. And so he can still play out to the field. He can come in. He's a really good will linebacker. So we preach for our guys to be able to be multiple. And when you can be multiple within the scheme, it allows us flexibility to do different things, and it makes it harder on offenses. And you mentioned those two specifically, and the two guys that have really bought into that, both Zion and Alex. And hey, the more we can do, the more versatile we can be, the more packages we can sort of, bounce in and out of. It makes it harder to identify. And just really proud of both of those guys in terms of how they've bought into it. You got to put in a lot of work to be able to play different positions like that.
Right, with two SEC games so early in the season, does that change at all how you approach camp?
No, I don't think so. I don't. It doesn't really matter who you play. Camp, you got to approach as, hey, this is our time to work and get our team set. And if you look at it, I don't know how many years it is now. It was probably 3 of the 6 that I've been here. We played, Florida early in the season. Maybe it was 2 of them. 2 times we played Florida on the road, 18 and 22. So, no, we're used to having to play some SEC games early, and but it doesn't change your mentality. It still comes down to we're playing Southern Miss on August 31st, and that's what we're building up to. That's the sort of the crescendo of camp is that first game.
Brad, how do you think Keyshawn's progressing? Where have you seen him grow from last year?
Yeah, I think there's just an understanding and a confidence that it's not. There's not a lot of unknown for him. Yes, we had him last year in spring ball, so we had a base part of the deal. But hey, this is my first year as a starter. This is my first year, taking the full workload. And now there's no unknown there. He understands sort of what's expected, and he's one of those guys I think has had a really good camp thus far. So we need to keep progressing that.
What have you seen from Pop, having been in the system for a little bit longer now? And
every day you see a guy that's more and more confident, more and more comfortable, within our scheme. The helmet communications are nice, just from a fact that, we can have a couple more on the practice field than we can have, we can only have one on game day, but on the practice field you can have multiple. And so allowing me to sort of, if a play happens, I can just, without going over and slowing the pace of practice, I can just make a quick correction, at that moment in his helmet so that it sinks in the moment, if that makes sense. And so that's been a huge benefit, I think, in not just for Pop, but for all those guys that have put the helmet comms in. And but you can just, the games are deep. Not the game. The game is, I feel, always been sort of slow for him. Like he plays fast, the game's slow. But our defensive system for him is really starting to make sense. Like you can see certain plays, you're like, okay, he's starting to get it.
has anything with Pop kind of come out that maybe you didn't know about from, just watching his film and studying when you recruited him?
Not really. Like, I mean, I think what we saw on tape is what we're getting. We're getting a guy that's explosive, and he can find the football, and when he gets to the ball carrier, there's typically a pretty loud thud.
Will Deere be the guy with the helmet in games, or is that still up in the air?
Yeah, we'll decide that as we go forward.
This is a defense that has an opportunity to play against two different style quarterbacks, two different abilities. What kind of advantage does that provide you guys for better preparing for opponents down there?
Yeah, that's a great question, to be able to this year have a little bit more mix and balance in terms of everything we get to see in practice. Coach Hammond does such a great job of mixing styles, and then you have two quarterbacks that obviously can run the football, so we get a little bit more practice at that than maybe we did last year. So that's really good for our defense. Anytime you can see a different sort of style action, and then you couple it with everything they do, it puts a lot of stress on us on a constant basis. It stresses our rules as a defense, and that's the key, is like the more stress we can feel on the rules, I think it also helps our guys. It sinks in like why we do what we do.
Brendan, having the analysts be able to coach now in practice, does that make a tangible difference out there? Have you noticed that?
Absolutely, I absolutely do. I absolutely think that's a huge aspect. We've been really blessed here to have some really strong, analysts, and we're a Joe Scola and a Brian Brezowitz, and it's invaluable to us. Like, the tangible's not a strong enough word. Like, you can absolutely feel the difference, and to be able to have, again, just like the helmet communication, when you can make an instant correction, that sinks in the moment. You don't have to wait till you go watch on the film, and a lot of times guys, they forget what they felt in that moment. They forget what they saw. What play were you talking about? Like, if you can make it in the moment, like, it sinks in.
Right, with the full pads coming on, have you been pleased with the physicality your group's played with at this point in camp?
Yeah, I think we've done some good things. We've had some moments that like you'll always have through a camp, that you have to jump on them, and you have to listen. We have a standard the way we operate, and I don't know if I've ever been around a team that, like, it never wavered one bit. Like, there are times that you have to just, again, re-point out, hey, is this your standard? Oh, and then they sort of check themselves. This is as good of a group in terms of doing the check by themselves, but hey, listen, it's like anything else. I mean, that's why we're paid as coaches, to make sure we continue to push to that standard, and then try to push the standard up, elevate the bar. But overall, I think they've embraced the pads, and for the most part, they've done a decent job of embracing the heat. They've had some moments where it's jumped on their back a little bit, and they need to push through.
Fred, you've had, since you've been here, I guess, 4 different offensive coordinators: Eddie, Liam, Rich, Dr. Liam, and then Bush. Is that, in a weird way, has that been kind of good for you, that you get to talk to them and get different ideas?
Yeah, I mean, each one of them is a really, really good offensive coordinator in their own right, and they all have different ways they view the game, which is great for me, because then you realize that sort of the diversity of coordinator that you're playing, and when you go against 12 different opponents, and they might stem from similar trees, but then they all branch out, and they put their own little spin on it, and then you realize, okay, this is what he was thinking, and if I didn't have access to that, there's a chance that maybe I was like, oh, all offensive coordinators will think like this. But being able to have that, it's been good for me. Obviously, it's led to a lot of good friendships that I wouldn't have had, but yeah, it keeps me on my toes. It makes scripting a little bit harder every year,
Thanks, folks. We've got players ready.